Jordan Seaton's recruitment is one we have covered for many weeks as it led up to his decision yesterday. Is his recruitment the weirdest of this year? And where does this rank among the surprising decisions that you've watched high schoolers make over the past few years?
Well, this one was a thrill a minute, and we knew it was going to be. In terms of surprising decision, with Colorado being the destination, the school was a surprise. In terms of being, quote, shocked by the news on signing day, I mean, Derek Chambers flipped from Tennessee to Florida on signing day back in the 90s, which was a huge stunner. Patrick Turner committed to SC 5 minutes before he started having his in-home dinner with Randy Sanders and the Tennessee staff. That one was kind of bizarre. So there's been some along the way. There was some signing day flips with a couple of linebackers at Stone Mountain, Georgia, that ended up going to LSU that Tennessee thought they were getting that had been committed to Tennessee. But this one was different for sure. And when Jordan never would tell anybody how he was announcing, just what day he was announcing, and he never really had a time until he kind of threw it out on Instagram yesterday morning. And then when you learned that it was on the show, it was on FS1, and it was on a show with Michael Irving, then as soon as he popped up on the screen, you're like, well, he's going to Colorado. But because Michael Irvin and Deion Sanders are good friends, and Michael Irvin's done multiple features for that show from Colorado. They did their show live from there. He's been mic'd up at practice with them and different things like that. So once you saw that, you're like, this is not going to be Tennessee. And it ended up not being Tennessee. It's Colorado. And now he's talking about taking an official visit to Oregon and having in-home visits with all of his finalists between now and signing day. So I'm not sure the roller coaster is completely over at this point. We'll have to sit back and watch some popcorn and enjoy that one. I don't think he's going to end up at Tennessee. I think he'll end up at Colorado, but we'll see how aggressive the other schools are in recruiting him, because he duped everybody. Like nobody saw that one. None of the other schools saw that one coming. He was with Oregon on Wednesday for multiple hours, from what I understand, and it was already decided he was going to Colorado at that point. So how does everybody else kind of recruit him the last 2 weeks here will be another side story to this interesting recruitment.
VolQuest, Brent Hubbs with us this morning on RKW. So, Brent, where does Tennessee turn now? And is there any concern about Jordan Seaton's good friend and Tennessee Mr. Football and commitment Boo Carter listening to Colorado a bit more now with Seaton going there?
I think that you always have your antennas up down the stretch. You got to do that with all of your committed players. I think Tennessee's fine with Boo Carter. I think the worst thing you can do in any of those situations is assume. So obviously Tennessee remains in constant communication with Boo Carter, as they would have been had Jordan Seaton picked Tennessee. To be honest with you, got to recruit everybody to the finish line. I expect Boo Carter to be here for bowl practice in another week or so, and I think Tennessee's going to ultimately be fine there. I know Jordan Seaton put out the Instagram post the day of Mr. Football talking about those two together, which a lot of Tennessee fans thought was a really good sign for Seaton coming to Tennessee. I don't think it means Boo Carter flips to Colorado ultimately. So I think Tennessee's going to be fine there. But obviously they've been in communication and will remain in communication with Boo Carter until he's steps foot on campus and goes through a practice and signs with Tennessee.
Right, man. Of course, it'd have been awesome to have Jordan Seaton, but you also look at this recruiting class that Heupel has committed, that is, and there's some high caliber guys also in this group, man. Bennett Warren is a very solid cat. He's 8th overall at his position, according to some publications, and also Max Anderson. This isn't a end-all, be-all situation on losing Jordan Seaton, is it?
No, but Jordan Seaton is, the belief on Jordan Seaton is he is a plug-and-play guy. And it's not just Jordan that believes that. I know Jordan said that at his announcement yesterday. He's not making that up. That's what he's hearing, and that's what a lot of people out there believe, is that he's a guy who's going to be ready to play out of the gates wherever he went to school. He's obviously going to start from day one at Colorado. The day they issue him his jersey, he's a starter. And so, the belief is you were going to get a guy who could step in and play immediately. And listen, there's no denying this guy's talent, okay? I mean, this is not one of those, well, he's not really a big deal type things. I mean, the guy can flat out play. He's talented. Anybody that watched him play in the Mid-State saw it. Anybody that's watched him in IMG Academy this year when they were playing anywhere else saw the guy is extremely talented and has a really bright future in college football. Now, Tennessee has other guys committed, as you mentioned, and they've got to have some guys develop. Some guys who are on your roster have to continue to develop and, if need be after next year, because John Campbell's coming back. I think Gerald Mincey's going to come back after the 24 season. Then you might be looking for a plug-and-play guy in the transfer portal, much the same way you were this time a year ago when you went and plucked John Campbell from Miami. So it's not the end of the world, Ramon, in large part because of the transfer portal. If you miss, you can feel that need, even if it's a year later when the need becomes much greater. And I think that's part of the situation with Tennessee. That they're involved with David Sanders in the 25 class from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's been on campus multiple times. Tennessee will be deep in that one. He's arguably the number one offensive tackle in the class of 25 next year. So you got to roll on to the next one. And if you got to go to the portal, you go to the portal and you line up and keep playing. You can't let one guy, particularly at a position non-quarterback, you can't let one guy kind of define the future of where you're going on one side of the ball. And I don't think Jordan Seaton would have done that if he'd come to Tennessee, and I don't think that's the case if they don't get him as well.
When you look at the Vols so far, it's about 5, 6, maybe 7 guys in the portal. Do you, Brent, expect that number to go up since the door is open right now to officially hop in?
Yeah, I think so. I think that number probably goes up on Monday or Tuesday. Remember this about the portal that a lot of people don't remember or don't acknowledge is when you go into the portal, you go to the compliance office and you ask and tell them you want to go into the portal. And then the compliance office has 48 hours to put your name formally into the portal. So in other words, somebody could have asked yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, and if the compliance office wants to, they can wait till Monday for that to become official. So there's a little bit of a lag time there. I expect Tennessee, there will be portal news for Tennessee next week. I don't know that there'll be anything later today, but I do expect there to be some more portal news next week, and we'll see what some guys do. What's Tyler Barron going to do? Is that the NFL? Is that another school? Is that back at me? I think it's unlikely that he's back, but I wouldn't rule out him playing his final year in college somewhere else and not go to the league. Where a couple of other defensive backs going to go, some guys who haven't played a lot like Deshaun Rucker. And then you're sitting there with some COVID seniors who are looking to make a decision, like Tamarian Donald, Danico Slaughter. Those are COVID senior defensive backs that have a decision to make about their future. So I'm not saying those guys are going in. What I'm saying is those are some guys we're keeping a close tab on to see what happens to them or with them over the course of the next couple of business days.
Brent Hubbs from VolQuest joining us now. Also keeping tabs on some of those high school recruits. Obviously, contact period in effect right now. Brent, when it comes to Tennessee and one of the local guys here at Ensworth, the cornerback Jaron Sensabaugh, what is the news on him? Any positive news with that?
Well, he's going to visit officially this weekend, and I think Tennessee will push hard there. I think that when you talk about where are they with some of these COVID seniors and some guys going in the portal, what do their numbers look like at defensive back? I think that, that's a position that's been hit by the portal, which is not a surprise. They had a deep number of guys there, but you got to replace some guys too. And I think Sensabaugh is a guy that has had a good senior year. I think Tennessee likes where he is, likes his development. I think this is a big official visit weekend with him, and I think Tennessee will love up on him hard and push hard there because I think that his priority factor with Tennessee has only grown throughout this season. He's had a nice senior year.
What have you seen in terms of maybe the younger guy, one guy that has maybe the most momentum to build off of this season, Brent, moving to next season?
Yeah, you're talking about current guys on the roster?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the defensive backfield, I think Ricky Gibson is a guy that you look at, man, he's going to be a really good player for Tennessee next year. And I think he is a guy who can move and will move into the starting lineup as a corner. It won't shock me if he's not a starter for the bowl game or playing a lot in the bowl game, depending on what a couple of guys do in terms of opt-outs. At the linebacker level, I think you like what you see out of Arian Carter, even though he missed the last 2 games with the shoulder injury. He won't play in the bowl game. But Jeremiah T-Lander is a young guy who's gotten better. You move it to the front level, if you're talking about freshmen, I think the fact that they got Davin Hobbs as many reps as they did and worked him into that rotation, and maybe it was 10 snaps a game, 12 snaps a game, but those are so valuable for him for this offseason and next year. I think he's a guy with a really bright future. And then offensively, everybody wants to see Nico and where he's at. I think he was, if you looked at him in the Connecticut game or the Vanderbilt game, he was a much better football player then than he was against UTSA or Austin Peay at the start of the year as the game slows down and he's getting better. And then I think Ethan Davis has got a chance to be a star at Tennessee. I really do. I like his potential. He's got to get more physical as a tight end. That's why they're looking to bring in some transfer help to give some depth and experience there to kind of help bring him along. But I think Ethan Davis has a ton of tools to work with. I think he is super talented and has a bright future moving forward if he can stay healthy.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with us. And Brent, along those lines, Tennessee will host Notre Dame tight end transfer Holden Stays this weekend, and Southeast Louisiana tight end Bauer Sharp next weekend. I know headlines with Justin Jolly no longer visiting Tennessee, the UConn tight end that the fans have just made the belle of the ball, considering the way he played against Tennessee a few months ago. What is the Vols' priority there at that position, and does it feel like Holden Stays at this point is their number one target?
Yes, yeah, Holden Stays is their top target for sure. And the reason he's the top target over Jolly is he's complete. He can play inline. He can block. He can do things more physically than what Jolly can do. Jolly is a big receiver playing tight end, and I think that he can, in time, become a good blocker, but I think he's a ways away from being that. I think Ethan Davis is a guy who can do things better in time than what Jolly's going to be able to do in time, and I think that's why Jolie was more down the list for Tennessee, because just the lack of physicality in the run game. So, I think there's a chance Tennessee would take 2 transfer tight ends if they could get to, but it starts with Stays from Notre Dame, and he'll be in town this weekend for his official visit. Now, they're battling Oklahoma, and they're going to battle out on the West Coast as well. So that one's not going to be a laydown. He's got 2 other visits set up after Tennessee, but that's the priority for Tennessee heading into this weekend in the transfer portal.
Brent, do you get any idea that there will be players opting out for NFL draft purposes of the Citrus Bowl? And when do you think we could get an announcement on any of those things?
I think those announcements are going to come next week, and here's why. The final exams started, or they start today at Tennessee, and they run through next week. Now, Tennessee will work out and do some things, but this time next week, we're going to be talking about Tennessee formally starting bowl practices, right? Like when I say starting bowl practices, I mean from the standpoint of Iowa prep, right? You're going to introduce Iowa, and you're going to start looking at some things with Iowa, and it's going to be about the game, not about a workout, not about a fundamental practice, but it's going to be more about the game. I sound like Allen Iverson this morning. It's about the game, guys. And so at that point, then that's when you have to have a decision if you're Josh Heupel, the staff, because you're game planning. So it's like, I'm not going to give, Jalen Wright first-team reps if he's not going to play in the game. Where's Joe Milton in the decision-making process? Where's Tyler Barron, and what is he going to do? So I think by this time next week, those decisions, maybe they're not all publicly made, but the coaching staff has to know where those guys are going to be so that they can get their team focused, they're going to be available for the game, focused on the game, right? The kids are in the transfer portal. You're not going to be a factor. If other guys are going to opt out and not come back for their COVID year, like Gabe Judy-Lally, if that's what he ends up doing, you got to move on from them and start focusing on the guys that you were going to have available because you're putting a game plan in.
Brent Hubbs with us this morning. Brent, I always like to ask the parental question, man, for the parents that listen to us in the morning, okay? With your knowledge, because you have a lot, and you've seen almost everything as old as you – no, I'm joking.
Yeah, that's
wow.
true. I've
Watch
seen a
it.
lot. Listen, I can't deny that one, Ramon. I mean, I would love to come back with something, but I did throw out Derek Chambers this morning earlier. There's probably only a handful of people listening that went, wait a minute, what's the story with that? Because that was a long conversation.
With that being said, though, you've seen a lot of parents get involved in recruiting, and now it's gotten more complicated with NIL and portal. And I kind of want to bring it to the mid-state real quick, man, as we all follow the twins from down the street here in Middle Tennessee. They both left Kentucky, Destin and Keaton Wade. At one, even the dad said in the article I read was fine, but he was worried about his other child as far as playing quarterback. How do you view that, and what advice do you give parents? Because it's Brent, very complicated. Even myself, whenever my kids potentially may go through this, you got to have some harsh reality moments, and you got to have a lot of guidance. What guidance would you give parents, man, that have a situation as unique as theirs with twins?
Well, with twins, it's different. It's hard because, if you've got sons or daughters in playing sports and they're of a different age, if one's 2 years behind the other, then that's a total different perspective than two that are the same age, same year, trying to go play together at the same place. And we all know twins, there's an attachment there that's very different than any other sibling attachment that you have. So I think that changes it and makes it harder. How long do they want to play together? Is one sacrificing his game or her game to do whatever the other one wants to do, and those types of things. And the reality is, I don't think he's a quarterback, and I don't think anybody really coming out of high school thought he was going to be a college quarterback. But clearly, that family believes he can play quarterback, and he thinks he can play quarterback. Who's going to give them a chance to do that, and how realistic is that chance? As a parent, I think the greatest struggle through any of that, and it's not just recruiting, but it's the greatest struggle through competitive sports, is at some point the reality of your kid being what your kid is. Because we all want our kid to be elite, right? We all want to do everything we can to make our kid and help our kid be the most successful he can be. We'll pay for trainers, we'll pay for nutritionists and strength coaches and performance coaches and tutoring. And, we want to do everything possible to help our kid, be great at whatever it is they're trying to be great at, which is wonderful. That's what you want to do. At some point in time, though, you also have to have a reality of kind of where you are and who you are. And I think that moment of having that reality and becoming in tune with that reality is the hardest thing for parents to accept out there. And I think that is the challenge. And so you have to have an open enough mind, Ramon, as a parent to have a difficult conversation with a coach or with an expert or somebody who says, you know what, you got to come to terms with this. Your guy's not going Power 5, right? Your guy, that's not in your guy's best interest. He's the next level down. Focus on that if you need be. You know what I mean? Focus on where you can go play and all those types of things. Now, you don't want to kill your child's dream. Nobody wants to kill their children's dream, and you shouldn't do that. But there is a moment in time, whenever that is, where it has to become a reality, right? I mean, if you're going to play post in basketball and you stop growing at 6 foot, you're probably not going to be a post in basketball. I mean, that's the reality of it, right?
It is.
And so it's just hard as a parent in this world. It's harder than ever, I think, to grasp some of that. And the transfer portal has made the recruiting side of that, Ramon, even harder for parents, because you may think you got a shot to go somewhere. It may fall your way at the end. And how many times did you see when you were coming through, maybe the guy wasn't the highest recruited guy, but suddenly in January, the board at that school kind of dwindled down and it sort of fell to them and created an opportunity. That doesn't happen as much as it used to, because instead of falling to the point where you take a chance that's maybe a risk on a kid, let's say an Inky Johnson, for example.
That's what I was thinking of.
All those things. How did he get to Tennessee? Well, academically, a lot of people were concerned, but Tennessee had a plan for him. And then Tennessee ended up with a spot they weren't expecting to have, and they said, hey, we'll take a chance on this guy. In this day and age, does he get that same chance, or does that school go, you know what, let's go get a guy who's out of the transfer portal that's played a couple of years at Southwest Louisiana, or he's played at a smaller school that we think can step up, okay? Because we don't necessarily aren't going to take a chance on a kid that we're not sure is ever going to be big enough or good enough to play here. We're going to go with someone that is a little more safe, if you will. That's happening in recruiting, and that's unfortunate because it is going to cost some kids some opportunities to get a chance at a bigger school that they would have gotten several years ago. Now, the byproduct of that is go to the smaller school, do well, and then being the guy in the portal a year or two later who's coming from Southwest Louisiana or from a smaller school to land at a Power 5 place. So the journey's different is what I'm saying, Ramon. And as a parent, it's your job to have some realism about the journey, as painful as that might be.
Great stuff as always from our friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and on 3 at Brent_Hubbs, where you can find him on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. Brent, thank you as always. Great stuff.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brent.
Yes, sir.